Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, your mind spinning endlessly, replaying the same thoughts over and over, weighing every possibility, every what if, as if somehow, by sheer force of thinking, you could control the future? You try to reason with yourself, you make lists, you plan, you worry, and yet the more you try to hold everything in your mind, the more it slips through your fingers. There's a heaviness that comes from overthinking, a tension in the chest, a whisper in the heart that says, if only I had done more, if only I had thought harder, maybe I could have prevented this, maybe I could have fixed it. And in those moments, when the mind refuses to quiet down, the heart begins to doubt, can I ever be at peace? Can I ever trust that life will unfold as it should? Overthinking is a thief. It robs the present, it robs clarity, and it robs the soul of its trust in the one who knows best. We live in a world that glorifies planning, strategizing, optimizing every moment, and yet, even in the most meticulous plans, there is a reality beyond our comprehension, a reality that can only be entrusted to Allah. It is this reality that asks us to surrender our obsession with control and instead place our trust in Him, not as a passive act, but as an active embrace of life's uncertainty with the certainty of faith. You see, our hearts were created to lean, to rely, and to find solace in the one who holds all things. Yet when overthinking takes root, we begin to doubt that provision, we doubt that guidance. We doubt that the unseen is perfectly orchestrated. We dissect our fears, overanalyze our mistakes, and imagine scenarios that may never come to pass, all the while feeling responsible for outcomes that are not ours to determine. And the irony is that in this mental and emotional paralysis, we forget that the very act of overthinking is a symptom of the heart's distraction from Allah. Every thought that spirals into worry is an invitation to return to trust. Every imagined disaster is a call to remember that He is aware of all, that He is the planner of all, that no moment escapes His knowledge. The key to breaking the chains of overthinking is not simply to think less, but to realign the heart with the reality that everything unfolds by His will. It is to recognize that our minds, though gifted with intellect and reason, are limited, and our worries, though seemingly justified, are never beyond His capacity to manage. Consider the times in your life when worry consumed you, when you imagined countless outcomes, when anxiety made your chest tight and your mind restless. Was the end result ever exactly as you had feared? Most often, life unfolded differently than you imagined, sometimes better, sometimes in ways that taught you patience, sometimes in ways that humbled you, sometimes in ways that revealed blessings you could not have foreseen. And yet, how many hours, how many days, how many nights were spent in anguish over what might never happen, over what was never meant to be in your control? Trusting Allah's plan does not mean resignation. It does not mean passivity. It means recognizing that while effort and intention are necessary, ultimate outcomes are determined by one who is infinitely wise. It means knowing that worrying will not add a moment to your life, nor will it rearrange destiny. It means understanding that your mind can only see fragments of the picture, whereas Allah sees it all, the threads of your life interwoven in ways you cannot perceive. And it is in surrendering to this unseen wisdom that the heart finds rest. When overthinking strikes, it often manifests as a loop of if-onlys and what-ifs. What if I fail? What if I lose? What if the path I choose is wrong? But the reality is that nothing is truly wasted when life is entrusted to Allah. Every experience, every choice, every event, every loss, and every gain is a part of a plan that serves a purpose beyond what the mind can grasp. And when you begin to internalize this truth, the weight of overthinking begins to lift, not because the mind has solved all possibilities, but because the heart has chosen to trust what the mind cannot control. Overthinking is often rooted in fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of inadequacy, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear is a natural part of human experience. It becomes dangerous when it overtakes the heart, when it convinces us that control is our responsibility and that uncertainty is intolerable. But uncertainty is part of life. Allah tells us that He is sufficient, that He is the best of planners. And if the one who created the heavens and the earth knows what is best for His creation, then can we not place our trust in Him? Can we not let our minds rest, knowing that outcomes are already measured and guided by infinite wisdom? One practical way to begin this journey is through remembrance and reflection. Pause your racing mind, take a deep breath, and remind yourself that worry does not change destiny. Reflect on the countless times when anxiety over outcomes consumed you, yet life unfolded in ways that prove the adequacy of divine planning. Train your heart to repeat, Allah knows best. Allah is sufficient for me. He is with me in every difficulty, and every plan is in His hands. With practice, these reflections shift the mind from endless speculation to calm submission. Overthinking also thrives on attachment to outcomes, attachment to control, attachment to perfection. We want life to align exactly with our desires, exactly with our expectations. And when it does not, the mind rebels, spinning into scenarios that try to force reality into our mold. But every moment of resistance against divine wisdom is a moment of tension in the heart. The more we cling to control, the more our energy is drained, the more our peace is sacrificed. Letting go does not mean apathy, it means releasing the illusion that we are in charge of what is not ours to command. Overthinking is not simply a habit of the mind, it is often a reflection of a deeper unrest in the heart, a distraction from the trust and reliance that the soul naturally seeks in Allah. When we find ourselves trapped in endless cycles of worry, when our thoughts spiral into fears and what-ifs, it is a signal that the heart has shifted its reliance from the one who knows best to the fragile perception of our own intellect and understanding. The mind begins to take on responsibilities that were never meant for it, attempting to predict outcomes, weigh possibilities, and control events that are ultimately beyond human capacity. In doing so, the heart becomes burdened, and the soul grows weary from carrying weight that was never intended for it to bear. Overthinking, in this sense, is not just mental fatigue, but a spiritual symptom, a manifestation of our struggle to fully surrender to divine wisdom. The cycle of overthinking often begins with fear, whether fear of failure, fear of loss, or fear of the unknown. These fears stir the mind, urging it to imagine countless scenarios, to rehearse every potential mistake, and to anticipate every possible disappointment. And while the mind convinces itself that this preparation is a form of control, in reality, it only magnifies the sense of helplessness because no amount of analysis can account for the full scope of life's unfolding. Every imagined outcome, every hypothetical what if is ultimately subject to Allah's knowledge and decree. Yet in these moments, the heart forgets that the unseen is known only to Him, that every moment is perfectly measured, and that every event has been placed in the grand tapestry of life according to wisdom that transcends human comprehension. Overthinking also feeds on attachment. When we cling to specific results, when we insist that life align with our expectations, the mind becomes restless and anxious. It is attached to control, yet control is never fully ours. The more we attempt to force outcomes to fit our desires, the more tension and unrest we generate within ourselves. This attachment creates a constant friction between what we hope for and the reality that Allah has ordained. The remedy is not in silencing the mind completely, but in realigning the heart, in reminding ourselves that true security lies not in control, but in trust. When the heart returns to reliance on Allah, overthinking loses its grip, because the soul is anchored in a certainty that the mind cannot fabricate. It is important to recognize that overthinking is not a moral failing, It is a human tendency that signals a need for spiritual recalibration. The mind is a tool meant to reason, plan, and navigate life, but it is limited in scope and perspective. When the heart relies excessively on the mind, it becomes vulnerable to anxiety, self-doubt, and restlessness. The key is to cultivate awareness, to notice when thoughts have begun to dominate the heart, and to consciously redirect attention toward trust in Allah. By doing so, we do not suppress the mind, but harmonize it with the soul, allowing thought to serve rather than enslave, and enabling the heart to experience the peace that comes from knowing that every event unfolds by the wisdom of the one who sees what we cannot. True peace is not found in the mastery of every circumstance, nor is it secured through relentless mental effort to predict and control outcomes, but it emerges from a deep and unwavering trust in Allah's plan. When the mind is consumed with worry, it seeks reassurance through imagining every possible scenario, yet each imagined scenario only compounds anxiety because it attempts to claim authority over what is ultimately beyond human control. The heart, however, is designed to find serenity when it rests in the certainty that Allah, the best of planners, governs all affairs. Trusting Allah's plan is not an abstract concept or a vague suggestion. It is a conscious choice to release the illusion of total control, to acknowledge human limitations, and to embrace life with the understanding that every event is orchestrated with perfect wisdom. Effort and intention remain essential in life. They are the tools through which we navigate our responsibilities, pursue growth, and strive for success. Yet effort without trust leads to frustration because outcomes are never guaranteed. When we pour energy into worrying, obsessing over possibilities, and overanalyzing every detail, we act as if the unfolding of life is dependent solely on our calculations, forgetting that Allah's knowledge encompasses all things. Trusting Him does not negate our responsibilities, but it shifts the weight of results from our shoulders to His, allowing us to act with sincerity while letting go of anxiety over what we cannot control. This surrender is not weakness. It is a demonstration of spiritual strength, a recognition that the Creator of all knows what is best for His creation in ways that we may never fully comprehend. Overthinking often convinces us that we are indispensable in shaping outcomes, that our worry is necessary to prevent failure or loss. Yet history and personal experience repeatedly show that outcomes are rarely as we imagine, and often they are better than we expected or carry lessons and blessings unseen at the time. By trusting Allah's plan, the mind no longer has to carry the impossible burden of knowing and controlling every eventuality. Peace enters the heart when we accept that our understanding is limited and that the unfolding of events is guided by infinite wisdom, which ensures that nothing occurs without purpose, even if that purpose is not immediately apparent. This trust is nurtured through constant remembrance and reflection, pausing in moments of mental turbulence, reminding oneself that Allah knows best, and reflecting on instances where worry proved unnecessary gradually cultivates a heart anchored in certainty. Each reflection reinforces the awareness that overthinking is often a product of attempting to substitute divine knowledge with human speculation. By redirecting the heart toward reliance on Allah, we transform the act of thinking from a source of anxiety into a tool for discernment and action, guided by faith rather than fear. Ultimately, trusting Allah's plan allows the soul to rest amidst uncertainty, to act with clarity and intention without being paralyzed by imagined possibilities. It is the foundation for a life unburdened by the weight of overthinking, where effort is balanced with surrender and where the heart experiences a serenity that transcends circumstance. Peace is not the absence of trials or challenges, but the presence of trust in the one who orchestrates all outcomes, whose wisdom is perfect, and whose plan encompasses every aspect of our lives in ways the mind cannot fully grasp, yet the heart can learn to embrace. overthinking rarely exists in isolation. It is often rooted in fear and attachment, two powerful forces that shape the way the mind perceives reality and interprets experiences. Fear manifests in many forms: the fear of failure, the fear of loss, the fear of uncertainty, and even the fear of making the wrong decision. Each fear feeds the mind, compelling it to replay scenarios endlessly, anticipate every possible outcome, and attempt to prevent imagined disasters. This mental loop creates a sense of urgency, as if our constant vigilance could shield us from every misstep, yet no amount of anticipation can alter the unfolding of events that are already measured and decreed by Allah. Overthinking, in this way, becomes a symptom of a heart clinging to control, seeking refuge in the mind while forgetting that true security lies in reliance on Allah. Attachment amplifies this cycle. We attach ourselves to specific outcomes, to a vision of life that aligns perfectly with our desires and expectations, and when reality diverges from that vision, the mind reacts with restlessness, anxiety, and a compulsion to overanalyze. Attachment convinces us that our happiness, success, or safety depends entirely on the precise unfolding of circumstances, and fear reinforces the idea that any deviation is catastrophic. Yet this perspective is limited, for human understanding sees only fragments of a much larger picture. The wisdom of Allah encompasses everything, including what the heart cannot yet comprehend. When we recognize that attachment to specific outcomes is a source of our mental suffering, we open the door to detachment not as apathy, but as trust, allowing us to engage fully in life without being enslaved by imagined scenarios. Overthinking thrives in the tension between desire and reality. The mind clings to expectations while the heart senses that control is slipping, creating a dissonance that manifests as mental and emotional unrest. This tension can be alleviated when we consciously release the need to control outcomes and redirect our focus to what is within our capacity, our effort, our intention, and our attitude toward whatever unfolds. Trusting Allah's plan does not negate responsibility. It frames action within the understanding that results are ultimately beyond our command. When this balance is embraced, the mind is no longer a prisoner of fear and attachment, but a partner in purposeful effort aligned with divine wisdom. Spiritual awareness is essential in breaking the grip of fear and attachment, recognizing that overthinking is a product of the heart's reliance on self rather than Allah allows us to address the root of the unrest rather than merely its symptoms. Reflection, prayer, and remembrance act as anchors, reminding the heart that everything unfolds according to divine knowledge, and that worry cannot alter outcomes that are predetermined with wisdom. With practice, the heart learns to surrender while the mind engages constructively, transforming overthinking from a destructive cycle into an opportunity for conscious effort, reflection, and spiritual growth. Fear and attachment are natural human inclinations, but their power diminishes when the heart cultivates trust in Allah. By acknowledging our limitations, releasing control, and reaffirming reliance on the One who orchestrates all affairs, the mind is freed from the compulsive need to anticipate, manipulate, or perfect every outcome. This liberation allows overthinking to gradually dissolve, replaced by a clarity that comes from aligning thought with faith and effort with surrender, creating space for the heart to experience peace even amid uncertainty and imperfection. When the mind is caught in the whirlwind of overthinking, one of the most effective ways to regain clarity and peace is through deliberate reflection, remembrance, and conscious mindfulness. The constant barrage of thoughts, worries, and hypothetical scenarios creates a fog that clouds judgment, stirs anxiety, and distances the heart from the serenity that comes from trust in Allah. By intentionally pausing and turning inward, we create a space where the heart can reconnect with its natural state of reliance, where the mind can observe its own patterns without being enslaved by them. This act of stepping back is not an escape from responsibility. Rather, it is an acknowledgement that true understanding and guidance emerge when thought is tempered by awareness, reflection, and trust. Reflection begins with honesty, a recognition of the thoughts that dominate our minds, the fears that drive our overthinking, and the attachments that fuel our desire for control. By noticing these patterns without judgment, we cultivate self-awareness, a vital first step in disentangling the mind from cycles of anxiety. Reflection is more than intellectual analysis. It is a heart-centered examination of why certain thoughts persist, what they reveal about our deeper concerns, and how they shape our response to life's uncertainties. This reflective practice opens the door to a conscious choice to release the mental burden of overthinking and redirect energy toward trust, action, and acceptance of Allah's plan. Remembrance, or dhikr, serves as a powerful tool to reinforce this shift from mental turmoil to spiritual clarity. Repeating phrases that affirm trust in Allah, such as "Allah knows best" or "He is sufficient for me," gently retrains the mind and anchors the heart in certainty. This is not a mechanical repetition, but an intentional act of placing reliance in the one whose knowledge encompasses all things. Each act of remembrance interrupts the habitual cycle of fear and speculation, reminding the heart that outcomes are already measured and orchestrated with wisdom beyond human perception. Over time, these practices build resilience. As the heart becomes accustomed to turning toward Allah rather than spiraling into anxiety, mindfulness complements reflection and remembrance by fostering presence in the current moment. Overthinking thrives on projections into the future or regrets from the past, but mindfulness redirects attention to the now, where we have the capacity to act, to choose our attitude, and to engage with life consciously. By observing thoughts without attachment, we create a mental space in which clarity emerges, where decisions are made with calm deliberation rather than reactive fear. Mindfulness teaches the heart to recognize that worry is often an attempt to control what cannot be controlled, and that true peace arises when we align intention and effort with trust in Allah. Through the combined practice of reflection, remembrance, and mindfulness, the mind gradually loosens its grip on imagined scenarios, and the heart learns to rest even amid uncertainty. These tools are not quick fixes, but lifelong practices that cultivate a deep inner reliance on divine wisdom, transforming overthinking from a source of anxiety into an opportunity for spiritual awareness. Each pause, each remembrance, and each conscious observation becomes a step toward freeing the mind from the compulsive need to control, creating a pathway for clarity, resilience, and trust that sustains the heart in every circumstance. Surrendering to Allah's plan is often misunderstood as passivity or resignation, but in reality, it is one of the most active and dynamic expressions of faith. It is a deliberate choice to align effort, intention, and action with trust, acknowledging that outcomes ultimately rest in the hands of the one who orchestrates all affairs with infinite wisdom. This form of surrender does not mean abandoning responsibility, nor does it excuse inaction or neglect. Rather, it transforms the way we engage with life, shifting our focus from controlling results to striving with sincerity while leaving the unseen in Allah's care. The heart that embraces this balance experiences a freedom that the mind alone cannot fabricate, a liberation from the mental turbulence that accompanies overthinking, and a clarity that allows purposeful action without the burden of obsessive worry. Overthinking often convinces us that every outcome is entirely dependent on our own efforts, and it whispers that any lapse in vigilance could result in failure, disappointment, or loss. Yet this perspective neglects the reality that while human endeavor is necessary, it is never sufficient on its own. Outcomes are determined by forces far beyond our comprehension, guided by divine knowledge that sees what the heart cannot perceive. Surrendering in faith is not a denial of this effort, but an acknowledgement that our best intentions and actions are complemented by a wisdom greater than our own. In this way, surrender becomes an active engagement with life. We act diligently, we plan responsibly, and we strive sincerely. Yet we release attachment to the results, trusting that Allah's plan encompasses all dimensions of our existence. This active surrender requires cultivating a heart that is both disciplined and flexible, one that can engage fully in work, relationships, and personal growth while remaining anchored in trust. It calls for constant mindfulness of intentions, asking ourselves whether our actions stem from fear, control, or obsession, or whether they are guided by faith, sincerity, and reliance on divine wisdom. When the heart leans into trust, overthinking diminishes because the mind no longer bears the impossible responsibility of predicting and controlling outcomes. Instead, thought is directed toward meaningful effort, reflection, and decision making that is informed, deliberate, and aligned with higher guidance. The balance of action and surrender also cultivates patience and resilience. Life is filled with uncertainty, setbacks, and moments that challenge our understanding, yet when the heart trusts in Allah's plan, each difficulty becomes an opportunity for growth, each disappointment a lesson in reliance, and each uncertainty a chance to deepen faith. Surrender does not remove challenges, but it transforms the experience of them, allowing the heart to navigate life without being paralyzed by anxiety or trapped in endless speculation. Ultimately, surrendering to Allah's plan as an active form of faith nurtures a profound inner peace. It teaches that effort and trust are not contradictory, but complementary, that action without attachment to results, grounded in the awareness of divine wisdom, brings clarity, resilience, and spiritual growth. By practicing this balance, the heart learns to let go of the compulsive need to control, the mind learns to focus on meaningful engagement rather than imagined scenarios, and the soul discovers that true strength lies in trusting the one who knows, who sees, and who guides all affairs with perfect wisdom and mercy.